Thank you. You guys can hear me all right? Okay, great. So, hello everyone, and how is everyone doing today? Good. So, quick story. I haven't slept last night. Uh, I was at an event till late last night. So I was in San Francisco. Came back to home at midnight. Had an early flight to catch. Came here. I think I landed in Vegas only about less than an hour ago. I was just telling a few folks here, and here I am. So please bear with me if I'm mumbling something up here. I also saw that a lot of us here are here to learn something new and have some new ideas. I'm not sure what I'm going to talk about is essentially something new. In hindsight, honestly, to me, it sounds like common sense. But to each their own. Hopefully, this is something that's useful at the end of the day. Quick show of hand, just so I understand a little bit of the audience here. How many of the folks here are in a business where you're doing, you mean your a significant portion of your business is like ACVs of $5,000 or higher? All right. How many of you are doing $10,000 or higher? All right, that's good. And is how many of you would say that a large majority of your business, like the median amount of your business, is at $5,000 or lower ACV? Okay, that's good to know. All right, so this is the. Just want to make sure I get this right. I need some help on what forward and backward here and where I'm supposed to be pointing it. Uh, Great. So we are scheduled for half an hour, but I only have about 15 to 20 minutes of things to talk about. I wanted to keep this more for things that you folks want to talk about. So I've left ample time at the end, and if you don't have any questions, then I'll make way for the next speaker. So that way we are on time. So a little bit about me. In about 2011, I founded a company called RecruiterBox. I am a programmer and builder by nature. I love programming. I'm happiest when I'm writing code and building products. But what happened in RecruiterBox was one of the things that I had to do was I had to teach myself programming. We built that product ground up. It was a bootstrap company, which among other things meant that us founders were doing pretty much everything that the company needed to be done. Whether it was writing code at the beginning, then doing product management, engineering management, later sales, marketing, you name it. At some point or the other, I have actually done that. That's anything that you would have to do in course of building a B2B SaaS company. We grew RecruiterBox to more than 3,000 paying customers. It was global paying customers. I think about 70% to 80% of our customers were based in the US, but the remaining customers were based in mostly English-speaking parts of the rest of the world. So that's a little bit of my background. RecruiterBox was an applicant tracking system. It was completely product-led, which means that 85% of our customers signed up for RecruiterBox, went through a free trial, and made a purchasing decision without speaking to a human anywhere in this process. That was a sales cycle. At its height, RecruiterBox was signing about 1,000 new registrations every month, and we were converting about 100 new customers on a monthly basis when we exited the company. I exited the company in 2018, after which I took a year's break. And in early 2020, I co-founded another company called Sprinto, which I currently run. And the thing that happens with Sprinto is we help other SaaS companies become compliant with frameworks like SOC 2, ISO, HIPAA, PCI, and so on and so forth. And if you are a software business and you're selling to upmarket, you would have naturally seen some of these compliances being asked of you. And as a result of actually running Sprinto, I've seen hundreds of companies trying to make that journey from being like an SMB play to, trying to take their market upstream and all the things that happen in the process. So as a result of both of these experiences, I've seen both my business as well as lots of other businesses make this journey from going from being like an SMB or a small ticket item business to more and more upmarket business. So that's a little bit of background. Right. If you are talking to any venture capitalists in the house, good. If you're talking to any, if you're talking to VCs, right, they'll tell you that going up market is the panacea to all SaaS problems. Yeah, you have high churn, you should go up market. You get lower churn. Your ACVs are lower. You should try and go up market. You have not so good net dollar retention. You should try and go up market. Your lifetime value is low. Go up market. You want logos that you can reference and you can show to other customers, go up market. So this is basically the answer to all problems that plague SaaS, if you will. And so we all in the room understand that why it helps to actually go and get those bigger and bigger customers. It helps you grow faster. These are stickier customers who are going to stick around longer and give a lot more value to your business. As we all know, though, it's not all a bed of roses. It comes with its own challenges. It's painful. It's a small story. In Recruiterbox, my median time to convert a customer when we were an SMB business was about 10 days. So 10 days from the time that they sign up, they become a paying customer. And if usually about, I think 80th percentile of our customers would convert within that amount of time. So we knew that they are becoming customers. And as we started going up market, we were seeing clearly in that segment, the conversion cycles were as long as 3 months and 6 months at times. And this was extremely frustrating for me as an introverted founder who hated talking to people and building a business which required setting up this whole machinery, which required, getting to these larger customers. Now, I think more than the fact that it was taking longer, what was also very hard for me to absorb at the time is that how opaque the entire process was, in the sense that it seemed to always depend on something that wasn't product. And as an engineer, as a product builder, I always felt that, hey, you should be looking at the product and make a decision based on that. But it always seemed to be dependent on something else. And any of you who have sort of done these large deals would probably relate to some of these things. It takes longer. It seems to involve these myriad security reviews where they ask you about, what are you doing about your security? Are you compliant with this? Or what do you do about that? And then you get on these calls. Then there is the buying behavior is different. It's like when you're in an SMB segment, there's typically one champion and they make a decision, they can swipe their card and you have your customer. As this becomes larger and larger ticket sizes, it becomes a committee, and there is more than one stakeholders who are involved in helping you make the decision. And in general, there's a lot more scrutiny. And to be honest, this completely stumped me when I was trying to do this journey as a business, which was 85% product-led, completely product-led, no human contact. So I realized that I needed a new mental model to basically understand Big Co, or basically understand how to do business or a product-led business when I am actually dealing with a company that's more complex internally, and they need to they need other things apart from whatever I was bringing as a part of like my product-led journey. And the simplest way I could describe a Big Co, and that helps me answer everything that would be needed in order to actually do this better, is that they are risk averse. That's the simplest way to define it. And as a result, you will get all of these proxy questions from them. And these are all symptoms of the fact that they're not quite sure if you are above a threshold of credibility that they need in order to do business with you. And that's one of the biggest learnings for me as we were trying to go more and more up market. So for me, this is, you'll get questions about your security, who's funded you, how many people have you have, how many customers do you have? Can you give me some reference checks, and so on and so forth. Whereas, I was used to having these customers come in, use the product, make sure it works as designed, as advertised, and then become customers. But this wasn't happening. So I think the simplest way to think about going up market is to change the mindset to say that, hey, they want to deal with vendors who are formidable. They are risk averse, and the answer to helping somebody who's risk averse is they want to deal with vendors who look formidable. That's the important bit from their perspective. So my simple framework, and if there's one thing I have to say in this entire talk, is that your prioritization framework as you try and go up market has to be designed around that fact that you have to be able to demonstrate formidability, and this goes over and above what you do inside of your product. in terms of features. A lot of these things has to do with things which are beside your product. They could include things which are inside of your product, but they often include things which are outside of your product. And those are the things which often become blind spots, especially if you are a company that's largely an SMB game trying to move up market. Right. Some of the tactics that eventually became important as I look back at my journey at Recruiterbox in hindsight is that some of the things that really help you is not to think of security as an afterthought. I often seen this arise to do this is where, everything is done and then they would say, hey, but what about compliances and security? What do you do about that? And then we would basically scramble backwards, do something, put some papers together, show it to them, get on a call with them, answer their questions, etc. What I've learned is that it really, really helps if you can lead with security and sort of do this on the front foot rather than dealing with this in a defensive position. From there on, basically the third slide in our deck, in our sales deck, used to be talking about our security, the fact that we are SOC 2 compliant, we adhere to certain security norms that are attested, understood in the industry, and so on and so forth. So depending on your specific industry, if you're dealing with patient health data, there's HIPAA, there's, if you're dealing with credit card information or any sort of the financial data, there's PCI. If you're doing some general purpose SaaS product, then it's SOC 2 and ISO, depending on the geography that you work with. And increasingly, you will see people asking questions about your privacy frameworks that you adhere to. Like in Europe, that's GDPR, UK GDPR, California has CCPA now. I think 3 more states in the US are coming up with their own privacy laws. These are the things that you have to be aware of, that you need to be compliant by, and you have to demonstrate that you're doing this when you're dealing with these customers. Single sign-on. My view of single sign-on used to be that, hey, this is important for our customers from a convenience standpoint, but it's not. It's a security concern again. The reason they want you to have single sign-on in your product is so that when an employee leaves, there's one place where they can remove the employee from and their access to your product goes away. This is the way they'll look at this. And that's another important thing to look at. This is a small subset of the things that might matter. Your industry and your mileage will vary, but the things to look out for is, again, these are all the ways that they are cutting down the risk that they perceive when they're adopting your product. They will ask you a lot of questions about SLA and support and even documentation if that's the nature of your product. So you have to be prepared for those kind of things. I used to wave my hand around this, honestly. Like I've been guilty of doing that. Hey, we have support. We get back to you, and in most cases we get back within 6 hours or a couple of hours. But no, like you have to be absolutely clear about what your SLAs are and stick to those SLAs. And to what degree of accuracy do you follow those SLAs? Is 99.99999 like availability SLAs and so on and so forth. You can't wave your hands around those things. They're going to ask you a lot of questions around who gets access to what. My products, Recruiterbox, honestly, in the beginning was pretty generous in the way we granted access, because that's how a smaller company works. You're not very specific about who gets access to what, but as we started growing to larger customers, we realized that we had to have very concrete walls about, hey, if you're an interviewer, you can get access to this. If you're a hiring manager, you won't get access to that, and so on and so forth. So those are important things that you need to be looking at. Reporting is important. As you go up market, you're talking to larger companies where there are layers of middle management, and their job is to show to their eventual bosses as to what they are doing, whether it adds up or not. So these are things that you need to be thinking about from a product lens, that you need to keep adding to your product. And there are some things which you have to think from a marketing lens in terms of what you need to be adding to your product. Referenceability, which is again about testimonials or case studies, which is what I was talking about in a later slide. How many of us here are in some sort of an engineering or a product role? Most of us? Right. As a product manager, how many of us here feel overwhelmed by all the feedback that comes in and you have no prioritization framework of how to go about this thing, or it gets complex? Is this something that is a challenge that most people go through? Okay. I've tried lots of various ways of doing this. The only thing that made sense for me is this framework, and I'm going to talk about this. It's not mine. don't recall the person who recommended this, but this has worked well for me. So, I highly recommended it to, especially as you're moving more and more up market. The simplest way to do product management in my head is you think of everything in three buckets. There is a bucket of things that we think are the game changers. These are things that you have, your competition doesn't, and this is what actually helps you land and win those deals. This is a very simple thing. Like, this is where you're setting the bar ahead. You're putting a stake in the ground ahead of anybody else. These are the things where you need to focus on and make sure that you're constantly investing, and this is the reason why your customers purchase you. There are deal breakers. There's always going to be things that your competition has, but you don't, because they are looking at it in a certain direction. And if you realize that those things are becoming important and they're coming up in your conversations with when you're trying to close those deals, you will have to close those gaps. This is where you're catching pace with your competition. So you need to have a bucket for that. If you don't do this, one of the two things is happening. Either your competition is absolutely wrong, and you are a visionary in your field and you know what's right. But the more likely thing is that there are things that you need to catch up with, and that's one of the things you need to keep some bandwidth for. If you're long enough in the business, this is something that you're going to have things to put inside. And then there's everything else, and that's by definition a dump yard. And this really helps you prioritize about what is going to really matter to your business. Like, is this going to help you sell better? Both the first two buckets are going to help you sell better. The third bucket is the one that actually helps you retain customers and upsell and cross-sell potentially to them. But then it's also clear who the owners of each of these three pipelines are. But this simple, extremely simple and straightforward thing is still very effective for me till date. This is my product management framework, and this has really helped me go up market better. It's important to say, understand that everything I said earlier, it's not just product. As you're growing into larger customers, you need to understand the support that you need from other functions inside of your company. Anyone here from a product marketing background or doing product marketing? Great. So these things are important. These are, again, things that help you reduce the amount of risk, as you're selling to these customers. Like, you have to have some work around case studies which are similar to what your customers are working with. You have to do some work around white papers around your industry or something else, and so on and so forth. Right. So here's something about the software industry that I've learned. What really happened about a decade ago, if you were selling software, and if you're selling software to about a Fortune 500 company, and they would ask you a bunch of these questions about, hey, are you SOC 2 compliant? Are you ISO compliant? Do you have NIST? Do you follow CCPA? And this sounds like an alphabet soup, but the thing over there is that they are required to at least review their vendors and to examine them and do this due diligence on every vendor that they get on board. What's happened since is that this whole thing is percolated downstream. For any of you over here get asked for these compliances as you're trying to move upstream, security related compliances, anything related to that, right? And what I've seen, at least in the last 5 years, is that this whole thing is accelerating. Like, it used to be about 5 years ago when I was doing RecruiterBox, this used to get asked in a 6-figure deal. But now you're getting asked for those things in 5-figure deals, in $20,000, $10,000 deals as well. And I suspect that the floor for this is going to keep coming down. The thing to understand about what's going on in the industry over here is that a lot of these security compliances are transitive in nature. What I mean by that is, if company A is SOC 2 compliant, it needs to make sure that its critical vendors are SOC 2 compliant, which we need to make sure that its critical vendors are SOC 2 compliant, and so on and so forth. So what has happened in the industry over the last 5 years is there's a lot of snowballing effect that's happening because of this. And you need to make sure that you are, you're in with the times. And this is important that you're aware of these things. Almost every country is coming up with their own privacy laws. This is something, again, to be aware of. These are important things that you need to do that. And the important thing here is to start early on this. If you do this when a customer asks for it, it's kind of already too late. Then you're sort of bending yourself backward in order to get those things done in time. Not the right time to do that. We are at the product-led conference. One thing I would tell everybody from my own experience, and this is basically my own story, is that I'm an introverted person. The thing that made me very excited about product-led growth, I didn't know it was called product-led at the time. I used to just think of it as self-serve, was that, hey, I can get customers without having to talk to them. And which was honestly the most exciting thing for me about product-led growth. The thing that I've learned overall, though, is that especially as you go into other segments, whether it's upmarket or you're changing your segments, to not be very ideological about PLG. PLG is great, and that's why we are here. But it's important to understand, to meet your customers where they are, and if they need certain things which are not PLG, you have to be there in order to meet them there. If some of these conversations need a physical meeting, they need a Zoom call, they need a human touch. It's important to meet their customers where they are. So again, like this sounds common sense and almost useless when I say it, but my lesson to myself is that meet your customers where they are, augment PLG with whatever is actually needed in order to close that business, and make sure that you're meeting your customers, you're giving your customers what they need. That's it. I don't have anything else. Thank you so much.
All right. We're doing great. Can you hear me with the mic? I am? Oh, cool. Okay. So on the Slido, where we did the poll, we also have a place for Q&A. So anybody can put in questions there. We do have a question, and we've got like 3 minutes before our next panel. So what inspired you to start Sprinto?
Great question. So when I was trying to take Recruiterbox upmarket, we used to first wing it by saying that we used to get a lot of security questions. At the beginning, I used to wing it by saying that, hey, we are on AWS. AWS is SOC 2 compliant, so consequently we are secure. And it was clear after some time that this wasn't flying anymore. So I was the person who used to get on these security calls and answer security-related questions, and I kicked the can down the road, to do SOC 2, because it seemed like this bureaucratic thing that doesn't really add any value. But it was clear at some point of time that we needed to do this. So I went through the process myself. I wouldn't say it was a pleasant experience. I think we burned tens of thousands of dollars on this, and 6 months down the line, there was no light at the end of the tunnel. Extremely manual, painful process. So when we exited Recruiterbox, I considered half a dozen ideas on what to do for my next startup. This was one of the things that I had personal pain points about. So that was my inspiration.
Awesome. Okay. All right. Got a couple other questions. So, how do you differentiate from how to meet customer needs and becoming a customer developer shop? So how do you prioritize between that? So if that makes sense.
Yeah. So this is a great question. Something that keeps me up, especially as you go with, that marquee logo, and there's all the temptation to do everything that they ask. I think this is where a certain amount of discipline is necessary. I don't think there's a good answer here. You're basically making a judgment, and this is where the product manager judgment is important about whatever it is that you're building for this one customer, whatever they're asking for. Do you anticipate that this is going to be important for a larger set of customers? And honestly, there won't be enough data to answer that most of the time. So it is a judgment call. This is one of those things where you would have to make decisions based on half the information, and that's okay, so long as you know what you're doing. If it turns out later that it didn't, and I've done those things myself, where you build something for a customer and it didn't turn out to be useful for anybody else, you goofed up. Watch out for it next time.
Yeah. All right. We'll do. We'll see if we've got time for more. But what was the biggest learning challenge you had when you started off?
Started off Recruiterbox or Sprinto?
Your choice.
When I started Recruiterbox, it was obviously a lot harder. We were bootstrapped. We didn't have any money. We didn't know how to build products. We had to teach ourselves programming. So I think that was simultaneously the hardest thing, as well as the most fulfilling thing that I've done, to teach myself how to build products. So that sort of takes the cake, I guess.
Okay, awesome. Well, we'll wrap it up there. Thank you again.
Thank you so much.